Supermax prisons, America's hidden hellholes. The door that never opens. The metal door slammed shut behind Marcus with a sound so loud it shook his chest. He wasn't in a normal prison anymore. He was now inside a Supermax, a place built to break a person without ever laying a hand on them. The hallway was cold, the lights never turned off, and the guards didn't need to shout. Here, silence was the weapon. Marcus stood there, locked inside a cell the size of a small bathroom. No bars. No window. Just 4 concrete walls and a steel door with a slot barely wide enough to slide a food tray through. Then he heard it, a chilling scream from somewhere deep down the tier. Not angry. Not loud. Just tired. A scream that sounded like it came from someone who hadn't seen sunlight in years. Marcus whispered to himself, "What kind of place is this?" A voice from the next cell replied quietly, like a ghost. "Welcome to the land of no return." The camera zooms out. Rows and rows of concrete boxes. Dozens of men locked away alone. And the dark truth becomes clear. This is America's hidden hell, the Supermax system. A world built to control the worst of the worst. But the reality inside is far more complicated, far more disturbing, and far more human than anyone wants to admit. The birth of Supermax. Before Marcus ever stepped foot in this place, the idea of a Supermax prison was already spreading across America. The first model was built to solve a problem. How do you control inmates who attack staff, stab each other, escape, lead gangs, or cause chaos inside normal prisons? In the late 1980s and early 1990s, states wanted a place where the most dangerous and uncontrollable inmates could be isolated. A place where violence would drop. A place where the system could breathe. So they created something new. 24-hour lockdown facilities. Cells built to keep a single person sealed away. No movement. No freedom. Everything controlled by technology. One by one, states followed the model. Colorado built ADX Florence. California built Pelican Bay's SHU. Ohio built their Supermax. Virginia built Red Onion State Prison. People believed these places would protect society. But no one asked what would happen to the people inside. Inside these concrete boxes, something else grew. Silence. Loneliness. An invisible pressure that changed people in ways no one expected. Some men calmed down. Many others broke. They started talking to walls. Started pacing in circles. Started losing track of time. And the thing about Supermax is simple. Once you enter, there's no clear path back out. That's the part the public never sees. And that's how Marcus, a young man who made one dangerous mistake inside a normal prison, found himself shipped to a place built for America's darkest fears. Inside, he would learn the truth. Supermax is not just a building. It's a system, a machine that never sleeps. The first 24 hours inside, Marcus didn't expect Supermax to feel like stepping into another planet. But the moment he walked inside the intake area, everything felt controlled. Not chaotic like a normal prison. Here, every sound echoed. Every footstep mattered. Every movement was watched. A guard pointed to a yellow line on the floor. "Stand there. Don't move. Don't talk." Marcus froze. They took his fingerprints, his photo, and everything he owned. Even his shoelaces and soap were replaced with versions too soft to hurt anyone. Then came the walk, the slow, quiet walk down the long hallway. It felt like walking into a tunnel where sunlight didn't exist. Every few steps, Marcus passed a thick metal door with a tiny window. Inside each one, he could see an eye staring back. Not a whole face. Just one tired eye watching him silently. Those weren't enemies. They weren't monsters. They were just people trapped in a world built to keep them apart from everything and everyone. The cell. When Marcus reached his new home, cell D214, the guard pressed a button. Click. The heavy door opened by itself. No keys. No hands touching anything. Everything was done through electronics. Inside the cell, Marcus saw a concrete bed frame, a thin mattress, a metal toilet, a small sink, a tray slot, a single unbreakable light that never went fully dark. And that was it. No bars. No TV. No window. A Supermax cell doesn't just lock you in. It locks the world out. When the door shut behind him, the sound shook the whole room. Marcus sat on the bed and took a deep breath. There were no voices. No footsteps. No movement. Just silence. Then the loudspeaker crackled. Inmate, you are now on 23-hour lockdown. Your yard time is 1 hour alone. Follow all rules. The speaker shut off. Marcus whispered to himself. Fine, but alone? He didn't understand yet. The yard wasn't a yard. It was a concrete cage, an outdoor cell with walls so high you couldn't see the horizon. Just a small slice of sky. The first meal. Hours later, he heard the only sound that mattered in Supermax. Put, put, put. The metal food slot opening. Marcus walked to the door as the tray slid through. A guard didn't speak. Didn't look at him. Just closed the slot again. The meal was simple. Basic. Cold by the time it reached him. But it wasn't the food that bothered him. It was the way it came. Through a slot. Without human contact. Without a single word. Marcus realized the truth. Supermax takes away more than your freedom. It takes away the world. Piece by piece. The neighbor's voice. That night, while trying to sleep, Marcus heard someone whispering. At first, he thought it was in his head. But then he pressed his ear to the wall. A voice was coming through the vent. Yo, new guy, you awake? Marcus whispered back. Yeah, who are you? Name's Dre. I've been here 8 years. Marcus couldn't believe it. 8 years, in this place? Dre sighed. Welcome to Supermax, kid. Keep your mind busy, or this place will eat you alive. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He just lay there, staring at the ceiling, realizing he had entered a world with rules no one explained. A world where loneliness felt heavier than the steel door. A world where the days blended together like fog. A world where escaping your own thoughts was harder than escaping the prison. When the days start to blur, Marcus woke up the next morning not because of an alarm, but because the lights never fully turned off. In Supermax, the room is never dark. Not for safety. For control. He sat up slowly, his back stiff from the thin mattress. For a moment, he didn't know if it was morning or night. Supermax steals time. Every day looks the same. Every sound echoes in the same way. Every hour feels like the one before it. Marcus whispered, "What day is it?" No answer. Just the hum of the vent. The routine that breaks you. Around the same time every day, he would hear the same 3 things. The guard's boots in the hallway. The tray slot clacking open for meals. The loudspeaker giving orders. That was it. Breakfast. Silence. Silence. Yard time alone. More silence. Inside Supermax, you don't walk to chow. You don't go to programs. You don't talk to people face to face. Everything happens through a slot, a door, or a speaker. Marcus could feel his mind stretching to fill the emptiness. The yard that isn't a yard. When the door finally buzzed and he was told to prepare for his 1 hour outside, his heart jumped. He expected a small field. Fresh air. Something normal. Instead, 2 guards walked him, in handcuffs and leg restraints, to what looked like a giant concrete box. The yard. It was only a few steps wider than his cell, with walls so tall they blocked every direction except straight up. The only thing he could see above him was a thin rectangle of sky. No grass. No open space. No other inmates. Just walls. He stood there, unsure what to do. A guard said, "Enjoy your recreation." Marcus walked in a circle. Then another. Then another. He tried to breathe in the fresh air, but the walls made it feel closed in. After a few minutes he whispered, This is supposed to help us?" From somewhere above, a crow cawed. That was the only living creature he saw that day. Talking through the vent. Back inside, the silence returned immediately. Hours passed. Then Dre's voice drifted faintly through the vent. "How was your first yard?" Marcus laughed once, tired, confused. "It's not a yard, man." Dre said quietly, "Nothing in here is what it looks like." He explained how people stayed in these cells for years. Some for decades. Some were transferred to other Supermaxes. Some never left isolation until they were old men. Dre told him. The trick is simple, don't let your thoughts run wild. This place, it punishes your mind, not your body. Marcus didn't fully understand, but he listened. That night, the silence felt heavier. Like the walls were learning his heartbeat. Like the room was shrinking slowly, one invisible inch at a time. When the mind starts working too hard. By the third day, Marcus noticed something strange. He began pacing without thinking. He found himself talking to the ceiling. He lost track of how long he'd been awake. Supermax doesn't break you fast. It breaks you slowly, gently, until you can't tell what's happening. 1 hour felt like 3. 3 hours felt like 7. And the nights stretched on forever. Marcus pressed his forehead against the cold concrete and whispered, "I can't do this for years." Then Dre's voice came again, steady and calm. "You're not alone, kid. You hear me? Don't let this place win." Those words kept Marcus awake. For another day. The pressure you can't see. By Marcus's 4th day inside the Supermax, something new hit him. Not the silence. Not the loneliness. But the pressure. A pressure he couldn't explain. Not from guards. Not from other inmates. But from the building itself. Every wall felt closer. Every sound felt louder. Every second felt heavier. Supermax wasn't just a prison. It was a system built to control everything. Your movement, your voice, your sleep, your thoughts. And the longer Marcus stayed inside, the more the place began to feel alive. The camera that never looks away. Marcus sat on his bed, staring at the small black dome in the corner of the ceiling. The surveillance camera. He couldn't tell if someone was watching him right then, or if the camera was recording for later, or if the lens even moved at all. But one thing was certain. It never blinked. Dre's voice came faintly through the vent. "Don't stare at the camera too long, kid. It'll mess with your mind." Marcus asked. "But they're watching anyway." Dre replied. "That's the point. You never know when they're watching, and that makes you watch yourself." Marcus leaned back against the wall. He understood. Supermax didn't need guards yelling. It didn't need threats. The architecture did the job. The echoes down the tier. That afternoon, Marcus heard something he hadn't heard before. A person quietly humming. Not singing. Not talking. Just humming a simple tune. So, almost like a lullaby. The sound traveled down the vent system, bouncing from cell to cell. Then someone else started tapping a rhythm with their foot. Then another voice hummed along. Then another. It wasn't loud. It wasn't organized. It wasn't cheerful. It was just human. A reminder that behind every door, a person was fighting the same invisible battle. Marcus closed his eyes and listened. For the first time since arriving, he didn't feel completely alone. The check-in that feels like a test. Later, Marcus heard the sound of keys. The only time in Supermax that keys were used. A guard stopped at each door, looking through the window for a wellness check. When he reached Marcus's cell, he knocked once. "Inmate, step forward." Marcus approached the door. The guard didn't shout, didn't threaten, didn't raise his voice. He simply said, "State your name." Marcus answered. The guard nodded and moved to the next door. It took less than 10 seconds. But Marcus realized something. They didn't do the check to talk, or to connect with inmates, or to help. They did it to make sure everyone was still present, still stable, still coping with the pressure. But the truth? Many weren't. The voice that shakes you awake. That night, just as Marcus started drifting off, he heard someone yelling down the tier. It wasn't a violent yell. Not angry or threatening. Just someone scared. Calling for a counselor. Calling for anyone to answer. A staff member eventually responded through the intercom, trying to calm him down professionally. Marcus sat up, tense. He asked Dre softly through the vent. "Is this normal?" Dre sighed. "Every night. People here don't sleep right." Marcus whispered. "Does it ever stop?" Dre said. "Some nights are quiet. Some nights ain't. But in here, the walls hear everything." Marcus lay back down. His heart felt heavy. He finally understood what Dre meant. Supermax doesn't need to touch you to hurt you. It uses silence, pressure, and time. That's the real punishment. And as the echoes faded, Marcus stared at the ceiling, wide awake again, knowing the night was going to be long. The human voices behind the walls. By Marcus's 5th day in Supermax, he realized something important. In a place built to keep people alone, the only thing that keeps you sane is hearing another human voice. Even if it comes through a metal vent. Even if you never see the person speaking. Even if the voice belongs to someone you'll never meet face to face. The man at the end of the tier. That morning, Marcus heard a new voice drifting softly through the air system. It was older, slow, tired. The voice said, "You're the new young one, right? Name's Harlan." Marcus pressed his ear to the vent. "Yeah, I'm Marcus. You been here long?" There was a pause. Long enough to forget how many years. "But don't worry. You talk, I listen. That's how we survive around here." Harlan didn't ask about Marcus's charges. Didn't judge him. Didn't try to sound tough. He spoke like someone who had seen 100 men break. And didn't want Marcus to be number 101. When the walls hide another reality. Around lunchtime, Marcus heard a guard rolling a cart down the hallway. The sound echoed like thunder. As Marcus picked up his tray, he noticed something strange. The guard slid the food through the slot but didn't make eye contact. Not even for a second. It wasn't disrespect. It wasn't anger. It was routine. In Supermax, everything is designed so no one gets too close to anyone. Even the staff kept their distance. Not out of fear, but because the system taught them to. Dre whispered through the vent. "Don't take it personal. They're trained to keep it short. Too much talking means too much trouble." Marcus nodded even though Dre couldn't see him. It made sense, but it still hurt. The story Dre never told before. Later that evening, Dre finally shared something that made Marcus stop breathing for a moment. Dre said quietly, "You know why I talk to you?" Marcus asked. "Why?" Dre's voice softened. "Because when I first got here, nobody talked to me. Not for weeks. Not one word." Marcus swallowed hard. Dre continued. "One day I realized, my voice is the only thing keeping me human. So I use it to help the next man survive. To remind them they're not invisible." Marcus felt the weight of the words. He didn't know Dre. He had never seen him. He didn't even know what Dre looked like. But in that moment, Dre felt like the closest thing he had to a friend. The counselor who tries. That afternoon, a counselor walked down the hallway. One of the few staff members who actually stopped at each door and made eye contact. Her voice was calm. "Marcus, you settling in?" Marcus stepped closer to the window. "Trying to." The counselor nodded slowly. "If you ever feel overwhelmed, call for me. You're not alone in here, even if it feels like it." For a few seconds, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt since arriving. Not because she fixed anything. Not because she made any promises. But because someone finally looked him in the eyes. Even through a thick metal door, it mattered. The night that felt too quiet. That night was different. No yelling. No tapping. No humming. Just stillness. Marcus lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Sometimes the noise was stressful, but silence was worse. Silence made your thoughts louder. Made the memories come back. Made the room feel smaller. Marcus whispered to the vent. "Dre, you awake?" No answer. He tried again. "Dre." Still nothing. A cold feeling spread through his chest. He wasn't scared of the dark. He wasn't scared of the guards. He wasn't scared of the building. He was scared of being alone. Even for one night. Finally, after what felt like an hour, Dre's voice came through. "Yeah, I'm here. Just thinking." Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Dre added, "Get ready, kid. Supermax gets harder before it gets easier." Marcus stared at the concrete wall. He believed him. When your mind becomes the real battleground. By Marcus's 6th day inside the Supermax, he began to understand something that no book, no movie, no news report had ever explained. In here, the real fight isn't with other inmates. It's with your own thoughts. He woke up feeling the same heavy pressure on his chest. Not physical pain, but the weight of another long, quiet day ahead. He sat on the edge of the concrete bed and whispered, "I need to keep my head straight." But in Supermax, even simple things become battles. The clockless world. Normal prisons have noise. People shouting, doors slamming, TVs, officers yelling orders. But Supermax? It's a world without rhythm. A world without clocks. A world where every minute feels like it's floating in empty space. Marcus paced back and forth. 5 steps to one wall, 5 steps back, and again. He didn't know how long he'd been pacing. It could have been 10 minutes. It could have been 2 hours. No windows. No time. Nothing to mark the start or end of the day. This is how isolation works. It makes your mind search for something to hold on to, and find nothing. The sound that breaks the silence. Suddenly, clap. The tray slot snapped open. Marcus jumped like someone had touched him. The guard slid in lunch silently, then shut the slot. Marcus stared at the tray. He wasn't hungry, but he forced himself to eat anyway. Dre spoke softly through the vent. "Good. Keep eating, kid. In here you gotta stick to routines, or your brain starts drifting." Marcus nodded. Even this, a quiet voice through a metal vent, was part of staying grounded. Harlan's warning. Later that afternoon, Marcus heard Harlan's older, tired voice drift through the vents again. "Young blood, you still with us?" Marcus replied, "Yeah, trying to stay focused." Harlan said, "Then listen to me. Supermax ain't like regular prison. Here, silence plays tricks on you. You start imagining footsteps that aren't there, voices that aren't real, and memories you don't want to think about." Marcus felt his heart tighten. Harlan continued, "So you talk, you stretch, you read whatever they give you. Do anything to keep your mind moving forward." Marcus whispered, "Did it get easier for you?" Harlan answered honestly, "No. But I got stronger." Those words stayed with Marcus like a tattoo on his thoughts. The counselor returns. Later, the counselor returned for rounds. When she stopped at Marcus's door, she looked through the window with a soft expression. "How are you adjusting?" Marcus hesitated. He didn't want to sound weak, but he didn't want to lie either. "It's a lot." She nodded slowly. "It's okay to say that. This place is challenging. But you're not on your own. If you ever feel overwhelmed, call for help. We take that seriously." Her voice wasn't dramatic or emotional, just calm and sincere. For a moment, Marcus felt safe. Not free. Not comfortable. Just safe enough to breathe. And in Supermax, that was rare. The night the vent went quiet. That night, something happened that Marcus wasn't ready for. The vent went quiet. Too quiet. No Dre. No Harlan. No faint humming. No tapping from other cells. Marcus lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the silence crawl over him like a thick fog. He whispered, "Dre? You up?" No reply. He tried again. "Dre?" Still nothing. He pressed his ear to the wall. Nothing but air. For the first time, the silence felt alive, like the building was listening. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He whispered to himself, "I need someone to talk, anybody." Minutes passed. Maybe hours. Marcus didn't know. He sat on the floor, hugging his knees, trying to control his breathing. Then finally, thankfully, a familiar voice whispered through the vent. "I'm here." Marcus exhaled shakily. Dre continued, "Sometimes they do late-night rounds. Sometimes they move people to medical. Sometimes the vents just get quiet. But don't panic. You're not alone." Marcus nodded, eyes closed. In a place where every door stays locked. Every voice matters. The Supermax truth they don't show on TV. By the 7th day, Marcus finally understood something most people outside never realize. Supermax prisons look clean, controlled, and high-tech. But the real danger isn't what you see. It's what you feel. These places weren't designed like normal prisons. They were designed like machines. Tight, silent, and unforgiving. And once you're inside the machine, you learn the truth piece by piece. The silence that changes people. That morning, Marcus heard a soft tapping on his wall. Not aggressive. Not angry. just rhythmic. He pressed his ear to the concrete. It was coming from the cell beside him, a man he had never spoken to, never seen. Dre whispered through the vent. "That's Rico." "He taps to calm his nerves." Marcus asked. "Why?" Dre replied. "Because when people stay too quiet for too long, their brain starts filling the silence with things that ain't real." Marcus swallowed hard. He closed his eyes and listened. It was the quiet sound of someone trying to keep their mind together. This didn't look like the monsters people imagined when they talked about Supermax prisoners. These were human beings fighting long, slow battles with loneliness. The guards who walk like ghosts. Later that day, Marcus heard boots quietly approaching. Not rushed. Not loud. Just steady. A guard stopped at each door, checking the small window. When he reached Marcus's cell, Marcus stood up and stepped forward. The guard nodded once. Not rude, not angry, just doing his job. Then he walked away. Dre whispered, "The staff here ain't like the movies. Most of 'em stay calm. Professional. Distance is their rule." Marcus asked, "Why don't they talk to us more?" Dre answered, "Because if they start seeing you like a friend, it makes this place harder on everybody." Marcus understood. Everyone here, staff and inmates, lived inside the same system. The system kept them all separated, even from kindness. Harlan's lesson. Later, the old man at the end of the tier, Harlan, spoke again through the vent. His voice was slow but clear. "Marcus, you ever wonder why these places are so quiet?" Marcus replied, "Yeah, it feels unnatural." Harlan said, "That's the point. Supermax prisons were built to control chaos by removing everything that makes life feel normal." Marcus listened as the experienced voice continued. No crowds. No movement. No conversation. No surprises. Harlan paused. "But here's the part the world doesn't see. When you take away everything, you also take away parts of a person's mind." Marcus didn't speak. He just sat on the bed, letting the meaning sink in. The day the air felt different. That afternoon, something changed. The building felt tense. Marcus couldn't explain it. There was no noise. No yelling. No alarms. Just a strange stillness, like the prison was holding its breath. Then Dre whispered through the vent, "Keep your head down. They're doing a full-tier search." Marcus frowned. "What does that mean?" Dre replied, "It means the whole unit goes quiet. Officers moving slow. Doors locked tighter. Everyone waiting." Marcus stood still, listening to the faint movements in the hallway. The soft rustling. The quiet radio chatter. The echo of gloves brushing against metal. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't violent. It was controlled. And that control, that calm intensity, was scarier than any chaos he'd seen in a normal prison. The voice that broke the tension. After hours of silence, Marcus finally heard something human. A soft voice from the next cell. "Yo, everything good over there?" It was Rico, the man who always tapped the wall. Marcus replied, "Yeah, I'm good. You?" Rico chuckled quietly. "Another day in the freezer, man. Just another day." That one simple joke, that small moment of connection, broke the tension like sunlight breaking through clouds. Marcus smiled for the first time in days. Supermax couldn't stop everything. Not the tapping. Not the whispering. Not the small moments that reminded you you're still human. The night that changed something inside Marcus. When night came, Marcus sat on his bed, listening to the faint voices through the vents. Dre talking softly. Rico tapping lightly. Harlan humming an old tune. None of them could see each other. None of them could touch the same air. But they were connected by sound. The only thing Supermax could never fully take away. Marcus whispered to himself, "I'm still here. I'm still me." And for the first time since entering the prison, he felt a tiny spark of strength. Not hope. Not yet. But strength. The day the wall started to talk back. By Marcus's 8th day in the Supermax, something inside him began to shift. He wasn't the same person who first walked through the steel doors. He had learned the routine. Learned the sounds, learned the silence. But Supermax had a way of testing people right when they thought they were adjusting. And today, the test came quietly, not through fear, not through force, but through memory. The morning that felt too quiet. Marcus woke up and instantly felt something was off. The hallway felt still, more still than usual. No tapping, no humming, no whispering. Even the air felt heavier, like the whole unit was sinking into itself. Marcus whispered, "Dre, you up?" No response. He tried again louder. "Dre." Still nothing. The silence wasn't normal. It wasn't routine. It felt wrong. Marcus pressed his ear to the vent. But it was like the prison swallowed every sound. The guard who broke the routine. A guard approached the cells for morning rounds. Usually they walked like ghosts, barely making noise. But today, the footsteps were slower. When the guard reached Marcus's door, he looked in longer than usual. Marcus stepped forward. The guard said quietly, "You good in there?" Marcus nodded, confused. The guard gave a small nod back and moved on. This tiny moment told Marcus something important. Whatever was happening, the staff felt it too. Harlan finally speaks. Hours passed. Finally, the old voice from the end of the tier, Harlan, broke the silence. His voice was weaker than before. "Marcus, you still holding on?" Marcus let out a breath of relief. "Yeah. What's going on? Why is everyone so quiet?" Harlan paused. Some days hit harder than others. Isolation leans on the mind. People go deep into their own thoughts. They need time to come back out. Marcus frowned. "Is that what happened to Dre?" Harlan answered. "He's okay. Just thinking. In here, thinking can take all day." Marcus nodded slowly. He didn't fully understand, but he was starting to. The flashback he didn't expect. Later, Marcus sat on the floor with his back against the wall. He wasn't trying to remember anything. But memories came anyway. Sharp, clear, and emotional. His childhood home. His mom cooking. His little sister laughing. The last good hug he ever had. The memories felt so real he almost reached out to touch them. But as soon as he opened his eyes, the concrete walls snapped him back. That's when Marcus realized, Supermax doesn't just keep the world out. It forces your memories in. Sometimes memories help you. Sometimes they hurt you. But in here, you don't get to choose. The return of Dre. Just when Marcus thought the day would stay quiet, Dre's voice finally slid through the vent. So, a little tired. "Yo, you good kid?" Marcus almost laughed from relief. "I thought something happened to you." Dre chuckled weakly. I was just stuck in my head. It happens. Some days your mind goes places you don't want to go." Marcus whispered. "I had memories today. Real ones. Strong ones." Dre replied. "That's normal. This place makes your brain reach for anything familiar. Just don't get lost in it." Marcus nodded, even though Dre couldn't see him. The human moment that changed everything. Later that night, something rare happened. Rico, the man who always tapped the wall, actually spoke clearly through the vent. His voice was shaky. "Hey, Marcus, thanks for talking earlier. Sometimes just knowing someone's there. It helps." Marcus smiled. "I got you, man." Rico tapped twice on the wall. Not random tap, but a rhythm. 2 taps. A sign of thanks. A sign of connection. A sign of life. Even in a place built to crush connection, these men found ways to reach each other. The night that didn't feel like Supermax. As Marcus lay down, he heard Dre breathing quietly, Rico tapping softly, Harlan humming an old melody. 3 men he had never seen. 3 human voices. 3 reminders that he wasn't alone. For the first time since arriving, Supermax didn't feel like it had total control of him. Just a little piece of himself. Just one corner of his mind belonged to him again. And that mattered more than anything. The breakdown point everyone faces. On the 9th day inside Supermax, Marcus woke up with a strange feeling in his chest. Not fear. Not confusion. But something heavier. Pressure. Deep, mental pressure. This wasn't like the other days. Today felt like the walls were studying him, watching how much more he could take. He sat up slowly, breathing hard. Even the lights felt brighter than usual. The morning that came too fast. Marcus didn't remember falling asleep. But he remembered waking up, suddenly, sharply, like something had grabbed his mind. The loudspeaker crackled. "Stand by for morning count." His heart jumped. Dre whispered, "Easy. Count happens every morning." But Marcus shook his head. This time felt different. His breathing was shallow. His hands were shaking. The room felt like it was shrinking around him. This was the moment Supermax was designed for. The moment when your mind hits a breaking point. The guard who noticed something was wrong. When the guard reached Marcus's door, he didn't just glance in. He actually stopped. Studied Marcus's posture. His breathing. Then he spoke through the slot. "You okay in there?" Marcus nodded, but it didn't feel honest. The guard didn't challenge him. He simply said, "If you need the counselor, use the intercom. Don't wait too long." This wasn't rude. It wasn't aggressive. It was human. Even inside these walls, some staff could see when an inmate was near the edge. The walls can trigger anyone. A few hours later, Marcus felt something he had been afraid of since day one. The silence started talking to him. Not actual voices. Not hallucinations. Just the building, breathing, vibrating, humming with the weight of isolation. Every little sound became louder. The fluorescent buzz. The air vent whirring. His own footsteps. His heartbeat echoing inside his ears. Dre spoke through the vent, calm and slow. "Breathe, Marcus. You're in the phase every man hits." Marcus swallowed hard. "What phase?" Dre sighed. "The breakdown phase. The part where the silence starts to get inside your head." Marcus pressed his back against the cold wall. "How long does it last?" Dre replied. "Depends on how strong you are. But it passes. If you fight it." Harlan's warning returns. That afternoon, Harlan's voice drifted through the vent again. Sincere. "Young blood, listen to me closely." Marcus leaned closer. "You're facing the Supermax test right now. Everyone faces it. The moment when the building tries to take your mind." Marcus whispered, "How do I beat it?" Harlan took a deep breath. "You don't fight the silence. You fill it." Marcus frowned. "With what?" Harlan replied. "Memories. Source. Routine. Voices. Anything that reminds you you're a person, not a number." Marcus closed his eyes. He understood now. Supermax doesn't physically hurt you. It mentally pushes you until you forget who you are. The breakpoint moment. Later that evening, Marcus felt the pressure again. Stronger this time. He stood up. Sat down. Stood up again. His breath got faster. The walls looked closer. He whispered, Dre, talk to me." Dre answered instantly. "I'm right here. You're not losing your mind. You're just feeling the weight. It hits everyone." Marcus pressed his palm against the cold steel door. "Feels like I'm suffocating." Dre replied, "You're not. This room wants you to think that. But it's just a room." Marcus took a deep breath. Then another. Then another. Finally, the pressure eased. Not completely, but enough to stand still again. The unexpected support. Just before lights out, Marcus heard Rico tapping on the wall again. But this time, it wasn't random. It was slow, rhythmic, comforting. Marcus whispered, "Rico, that you?" Rico replied softly, "Yeah. You sounded stressed earlier. This helps calm me. Figured it might help you too." Marcus sat on the floor and closed his eyes. He didn't know Rico. Had never seen his face. But right now, that tapping felt like someone holding his hand through the wall. Even in a place built to crush the human spirit, there was still something stronger than the building. Connection. Human connection. Even through concrete. The night that brought a new kind of strength. Before sleeping, Marcus whispered through the vent, "Dre, Harlan, Rico, thank you." Dre replied, "We all get through this together, kid." Harlan added, "You made it through the hardest day." Rico tapped twice. Marcus lay down and finally felt something he hadn't felt in days. Not normal. Not free. But strong. Stronger than when he arrived. Stronger than the silence. Stronger than the pressure. Supermax hadn't broken him. Not yet. The day Marcus learned the real purpose of Supermax. By the 10th day, Marcus didn't wake up scared, or confused, or overwhelmed. He woke up aware. Aware of the silence. Aware of his own thoughts. Aware of everything this place was trying to do to him. But this time, he wasn't alone inside his own head. Harlan. Rico. 3 voices he had never seen, but 3 voices that kept him human. The moment of realization. That morning, Marcus sat on the edge of his concrete bed and whispered to himself. They locked up my body, but they didn't lock up my mind. For the first time, he felt in control. Not of the building, not of the rules, but of himself. He understood the pattern now. Supermax wasn't built just to punish. It was built to isolate, to separate, to push your mind until you either break or become stronger than the walls around you. Marcus looked around the tiny room and saw it differently now. Not just a cell, but a battlefield. And he was learning how to fight. The guard who saw the change. During rounds, the same guard from before stopped at Marcus's door. This time, he didn't just check for safety. He looked Marcus in the eyes. There was no fear, no aggression, just a quiet respect. The guard said, "You're adjusting. Keep going." It wasn't a long conversation. It wasn't emotional, but it meant something. In a place built to remove human connection, even a 5-second moment can feel like sunlight. A conversation that changed everything. Later that day, Marcus finally asked Dre the question he'd been afraid to ask. "Why did they put you in here, Dre?" There was a long silence. Longer than usual. Then Dre's voice came through the vent. "I made mistakes. Real mistakes. I've grown in here. I've learned patience. I've learned to think." He paused. "Supermax didn't change who I was. It only showed me who I really am." Marcus felt those words like a punch. He whispered, "What about you, Harlan?" Harlan's old voice drifted through. "Son, I've lived a long life. And out of everything I've learned, the biggest lesson is this. A man is more than the place he's locked in." Marcus nodded slowly. He finally understood. Supermax wasn't just a prison. It was a mirror. A silent, unforgiving mirror that forced every person to face themselves. Rico's message through the wall. Before evening count, Rico tapped on the wall. Not random. Not nervous. This time, it was a pattern Marcus recognized. He whispered, "What does that mean?" Rico replied quietly, "Means, stay strong." Marcus smiled. In a place where people couldn't shake hands, couldn't look at each other, couldn't stand next to anyone, a simple tap became a lifeline. America's hidden reality. As Marcus lay down in the dark, a darkness that was never fully dark, he stared at the ceiling and whispered, "Supermax changes everyone, but not always in the way people think." Because the outside world sees headlines. They see labels. They see crimes. They see danger. But behind these doors are men trying to keep their minds alive. Voices fighting to stay human. People holding on to memories, routines, and each other. Even through concrete walls. Supermax prisons were created to control chaos. But they also reveal truths no one talks about. Isolation can break a person, but human connection, even the smallest kind, can save one. Dre's voice came through the vent one last time. "Good night, kid. Tomorrow's another battle. But you survived today." Rico tapped the wall twice. Harlan hummed softly in the distance. And Marcus closed his eyes knowing. He wasn't defeated. He wasn't lost. He wasn't broken. He was still here. Still human. Still fighting in America's hidden hellholes.